Testing. Left-hand side of the up and item. Made mine. And right when we
Thank you.
start, I'll turn on the mic too to the top as well. Okay.
Oh, that's right. No problem. I'm okay with.
Oh, yeah,
I was always going a couple of them and
yeah,
that kind of
I mean,
stuff.
yeah, as
But-
long as, but I never know what their agenda is or anything either.
Right.
Yeah, we could ask, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, but I just think if there's like
Yeah, I
something
don't
that,
wanna get in
a
trouble.
presentation thing, I think it's okay for us to sit and listen, but
Pick these up.
said it was fine.
I just said, oh, Jesus. I'm not going to say anything.
Plan to be, I just need to know where to be.
All right, John, you're kicking it off.
Tell me about the first day.
Yeah, but it won't take anything, it won't do anything.
Don't say nothing.
I won't say anything if you don't say anything.
You're in?
See, I missed
You
it.
good?
Oh,
How are you, Chris?
it's wrong again, let's see.
Oh, don't stress.
Oh. I changed my password and now I don't remember what it was.
Yeah.
Wait.
Lock me out, like,
He was saying that's too short.
oh,
Text you.
oh, all right.
John?
I don't need it for this.
Okay, I'd like to call to order the special meeting council workshop tonight. May I have the roll call, please?
Kenneth Burgess,
Here.
Charles Proctor, Lance Smith,
Here.
Jody Wilson,
Here.
Steven Spina,
Here,
Mayor Munson,
Here.
William Poe,
Here.
Matthew Maggard.
All right, thank you, Ricardo. And I will mention that it is Monday, August 12th, 2024, and it is 4:03 p.m. And today we're going to go over we have three presentations, and I guess we can just go right into it. A.D. Morgan is first, and so I will turn it over to the timekeeper and you guys.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate the opportunity to be here this afternoon to discuss our plan for the Zephyrhills City complex. We're going to follow the agenda very closely, beginning with the team introduction. First of all, my name is John Califf. I'm the Vice President of Operations for A.D. Morgan, and I'll be the project executive for this team. With me here tonight is Matt DiMatteo, who's our Vice President of Pre-Construction. Jeremy Warner is our Pre-Construction Director, and Aaron Simpson is our Senior Project Manager. George Rivera will be our Superintendent. George and Aaron are a team finishing a project for Manatee County School Board, and today's the first day of school. So George is very busy at school, making sure everything goes strictly as planned. But the other thing I want to point out is that our support staff is going to be critically important on this project. Rebecca and Frank and Vaughn are certainly involved in every one of our projects to ensure the success of each and every one of the projects, but we really feel the sincere tie to the city of Zephyrhills with the projects that we've been fortunate enough to work with you guys on. So we're going to make sure that that is the case here as well. So the past successful projects, let's talk a little bit about that. First of all, the three projects with the city of Zephyrhills that we've had the opportunity to work with you guys on, this project in particular, the library, the tennis center that we're currently in pre-construction on, all very important to us and ones that we take to heart. But then the 12 different municipal operations projects are very critical in the understanding of this particular project and how we go about that. We're going to talk a little bit about that as we go through this. But most importantly is the phased occupied campus experience that we have, and certainly the way you have to move things around to ensure that the operations don't get impacted with the construction that is so critically important. So the past performance is the best indicator of future success, and we bring a lot of that to the table, and we hope we show that here this afternoon.
One of the projects we want to highlight is the City of Claremont New Public Works Project. This is a project I worked closely on throughout all the phases of the project. It was a new admin building, approximately 11,000 square feet, and then in the back there was a 15,000 square foot new fleet building. One of its key features was an underground, in-ground service pit, but there was also truck wash, vehicle wash, cleaning, and storage facility. This was a greenfield site, so it started out at 28 acres of solid trees. So we had to work our way through all that, but it was a successful project on time delivery. The next project that we're currently working on, this is for City of Tampa. It's a design-build fleet maintenance facility. We were working closely throughout the design-build project, keeping the job in budget. When we did our first initial estimates, we were at $16 million. They had a $14 million budget, and we sat down and worked with them through all the needs and wants of the project, and we were able to pull that job down to the $14 million budget they had in the last DD phase. We're currently working on going through construction documents, and we'll be starting that project shortly.
And then Blackburn Elementary is an example, a great example of a phased occupied campus project that Aaron Simpson and George Rivera, the proposed team members for this project, are delivering right now. Blackburn Elementary had to remain 100% occupied throughout the course of construction, while we really did open heart surgery, demolishing buildings, swinging students to and from different buildings in portable locations. But the sensitivity that needs to be paid to the ongoing operations and the safety of the staff that are going to be working on the city complex while we're renovating it, while keeping the fueling station up and running and keeping fleet and admin up and running. So this is the critical attention that's going to be required on this project, and this team is demonstrating that through Blackburn Elementary, which is why we're showcasing it. And then DMA Zephyrhills Readiness. This project is about a half mile down the road from the city complex that we're contracted with DMA to build. It's approximately 65,000 square feet. They have a $19.8 million budget. Now, what I want to highlight here is a couple similar scope-related items. They're going to have a fleet maintenance component on the project, but really it's the budget. This is a very budget-challenged project. The project is probably a $35 or $40 million project in its entirety. They have $19.8 million to start with. And part of our task as the CM is to bring some creativity to the forefront and bring value engineering concepts and alternative bid items that allow us to get the project to an awardable base bid contract and get it underway so that the DMA can seek future funding to add scope back into the project as the funding becomes available, but making sure that it was designed efficiently and can be built efficiently in the future to add those components back to the project. Just a kind of a showcase how we work collaboratively with our clients on meeting challenging budgets. And then of course,
Can I jump in real quick? The last slide, that's the National Guard.
that is.
So that's what what they're talking about when they say DMA.
Yeah, thank you, Billy. Yes, that's the National Guard facility down the street from City Complex. And then, of course, City Hall, which we built successfully and are very, very honored to have had the opportunity to do. So let's jump into our approach for the project. It begins, really it's transparency, communication, and working as a collaborative team. Right out of the gate, we need to, get integrated with CPH, the design firm working on the job. Understand the mission critical areas, which we've studied carefully, being the fueling station and the fleet and admin areas, and ensure a cost-effective approach because, we're going to get into it in a moment, but there are budget challenges on the job, and we need to work together in unison as a team to identify what those efficiencies will be and what the priorities will be to make sure that we can, ensure a successful delivery of the project while maximizing the amount of scope. And then ensuring seamless communication every step of the way. John coined the phrase, bad news doesn't get better with time. So being upfront with one another every step of the way and just facing our challenges head on. So, a proactive approach, we say time is money and we don't want to burn time, wasting time designing something that the city cannot afford. So what we are elated about is the fact that we're getting involved now with CPH on the very front end of the design because this is the time where we have the most ability to make cost impacts on the project. This is where we can create the framework for the budget that they can design to and take that target value design approach by arming them with cost information and square foot cost information. We're going to go through that budget in just a moment.
And as we work through it and develop these budgets, what I do is I provide detailed takeoffs, whether it's the job we're at the phase we're at right now where there's very little information, just basically boxes on a drawing. I can still get a lot of detail out of that. But what I'll do is I'll be looking through that with our historical costs, and I'll be developing budgets with breakdowns based off of those items. And what I've done here and what you can see up on the screen is our standard Excel spreadsheet. This is our executive summary. It's broken down by division, but what I've done here is I broke it down by building. So I have separate costs for each one of the buildings and the site work. So each one of those items can be looked at individually as an individual cost item. And as we kind of go through at the summary, we include everything from the concrete through the plumbing, electrical, and all the general conditions and all the additional things, and look at the contingencies that we need to carry for the project. And as we develop our summary, we kind of develop into what we want to talk about, and that's the individual buildings ourselves. We have our we could look at this and prioritize a couple way by building. We have our new Public Works Admin building, which is about $4.7 million. Our Fleet Maintenance building, which is $4.5 million. And our site work is $4.5 million as well. Those are your key things that you need to have a functioning site. Everything else we look at as well. We're expanding two buildings. There's the storm building expansion and parks expansion. That's approximately $1 million. And then we're also building a new utilities barn, which is an open storage shed area, but there's also an attached office to it as well. And that building, those two buildings were worth about $4.5 million. And then we're renovating 3 additional buildings, sanitation, storm, and parks. That's about $600,000. So overall, the project is about $19 million. We understand you have a $16 million budget. So from an initial standpoint, there are some cost challenges, but what we're going to be doing is looking at each one of these items, looking at the wants and needs, and looking at the budget items, and developing the budget to get to the awardable scope and budget that you need.
So a couple examples of how we have met initial owner budgets and GMPs through this collaborative process of identifying, categorizing, and bucketing scope and applying cost to it, and prioritizing the scope, and also applying value engineering to each individual cost component. DMA, I mentioned a moment ago, that's the National Guard Center down the road. SVB was a very good example of this, where, the initial budget was a fixed $4.1 million budget. There was, not a penny more. And, we started out with numerous concepts, right? Because the city was going after additional funding on top of the 4.1 to see if we could get something a little bit grander, a little bit larger. And this was during a time that the market was going crazy. We were coming out of the tail end of COVID, and it was a very challenging time from a cost volatility perspective. But with working with the city for Wegman and Banks, we came up with, it feels 15 items were the proposed VE and alternate design options that we came up with for Wegman and Banks, by helping them prioritize the design by the cost that we could essentially afford. But it felt like 150 different items that we came up with. But ultimately, we wound up with options that saved the project roughly $3 million, getting us to the $4.1 million budget, which we'll present the GMP to you this evening. And then Polk State College. This is a iconic nursing college building we're building in Haines City. $35 million budget. Estimates were coming in at 38. And again, 90 different alternative bid items, value engineering concepts that saved $11 million. And then also maximizing savings on the project through our operational strategies like ODP, owner direct sales tax savings. Through the estimates we've developed with Jeremy, we've identified the items that we're going to be targeting. Really, we like to look at anything over $5,000. And we've developed an estimate of what we believe we could save, at least initially out of the gate, for what could be put back into the project after we've recognized that sales tax savings, and roughly $372,000. Another area that we look to maximize cost efficiency is by bringing the most competitive bidders to the table. So we go through a very rigorous 5-step process that begins with a robust outreach program. This is where we market to the subcontractors. We go to them, get them excited about the project, pre-qualify them, make sure they're the right fit, they have the right credentials, the bondability, the safety record, the track record, client references, all that. That's extremely important. But get their interest in the project and market it to them so that we can maximize the amount of bidders we have in every single trade category. So as we talk about the markets we're targeting, Pasco County, of course, is one. We've been working in Pasco County for 30 years now. A lot of work for the school district, of course, with the city of Zephyrhills, but many great relationships here in Pasco County. We're delivering the Academy at the Farm High School right now. So a lot of recent work experience here with those great relationships that we're going to be able to leverage and bring to the table. But to add more competition to the environment, we want to reach into the adjacent counties as well, but still paying respect and homage to our local subcontractor partners here in Pasco County. So schedule, I said it before, time is money. And, we've developed a phasing and schedule approach for the project that ultimately minimizes our amount of time on the job. Because there's the cost of the work, which is the cost for the buildings and the materials and systems, but then there's also general conditions, contingencies, and general requirements, which are our costs. And the least amount of time on site possible, the lesser amount of GCs and GRs you pay that don't equate to square footage on your facility. So we've come up with an approach that equates to a 19-month schedule in lieu of a 20 or 22-month schedule, and we're going to walk you through that approach in a minute. Of course, as it relates to maintaining the project schedule, it's generating a detailed plan of attack, a game plan with CPH in conjunction with the city and all of our stakeholders that we're going to be coordinating with, understanding where we can be, where we can't be on the site, and what we need to protect. But some of the key items I want to point out, at least in the pre-construction phase, are our early release packages for our pre-engineered metal building. That system has an extensively long lead time, so it's something we want to get ordered as soon as we possibly can. And then at the design development phase, an early release package for our electrical switchgear and our generators. Those are two other items that won't be developed until mid-design, but we need to have that package ready to order at that juncture so we can order the equipment and have it when we need it and not be waiting on it or have it impact the construction schedule. And then, of course, a 3-phase construction delivery that equates to 19 months. So again, mitigating supply chain challenges through early release packages. We've identified what we believe are the risk components for this project, be it the pre-engineered metal building, the diesel generator, electrical switchgear. These are going to be the items of focus that we really need to hit hard with CPH and make sure we're ready to order them. And then, of course, we're going to leverage communication tools, project management tools, and scheduling tools. Procore is our primary project management software system. This allows total transparency across the board. Anyone from the city can access it. Our design partners at CPH and the design consultants can access it. And it handles all project administration, billings, and finance in a very transparent manner with backup so that we have a completely auditable project at the end of the day. And then we utilize Oracle P6 for developing our master project schedules to communicate that with our team members. And then QA, QC is another huge part of our job, is to manage the quality on the project. And that process begins in the design phase, from schematic all the way through CD, looking at constructability, making sure the design specifications are coordinated with the design documents. Also leveraging building information modeling so that we can identify potential clashes or lack of coordination in the design disciplines so that they don't become conflicts in the field, because that's when you run into potential change orders, potential delays, and things of that nature. So we remove those risks during the pre-construction phase. And then at the end of the day, we want to close out the job and get out of your hair. So we go through a comprehensive closeout process. We'll do owner video documented training for all your new systems and equipment. We'll take the facilities maintenance, O&Ms, and warranty information, package that up, give it back to you guys. But we also load it into ProPlan. This is a proprietary facilities maintenance software system we've developed where we QR code any operating asset in the facility. We upload its warranty and operations maintenance information into it, and it's given to your facilities maintenance team so they can just take their phone, scan the tag, and they can have everything they need to know about that piece of equipment right there at them, and that is no cost to the city. Safety is paramount as well, and we implement a culture of safety that's very specific to the project on every job. Every job has its own unique challenges and its unique issues. In this case, one of the critical focuses, aside from making sure our people are safe, or making sure your people are safe. So we'll be implementing a project-specific safety plan, and I'll walk you through that. And then maximizing community engagement. This is another component. This is a big deal. You're making a big investment into your facilities, and we want the city to know that. So we're going to have a project-specific website. We're going to QR code it on the side of the windscreen and showcase it to the community so that they can see what's going on and the investment you're making into the facilities. So we wanted to walk you through our initial thoughts on phasing and schedule that get us done in 19 months. So, phase one, as we see it, understanding the do's and don'ts. We have to protect the fuel station and make sure it remains fully operational, as well as the fleet maintenance and admin building until the new fleet and admin are up online. So in the first 12 months in phase one, we're going to construct buildings, new buildings A, K, L, G, and H. That's very achievable within a 12-month phase. But by getting all of these components done on the front end, thank you, we'll have the ability to swing the operations from where they are and then have access to the other areas of the site so that we can shift our operations over and begin the demolition of building A, B, C, and D to make way for the construction of new buildings D and B. Excuse me, which D and B would be roughly a 5-month process. And then finally finishing with our last bit of site work and paving and getting out of your hair at the end of the day. And all to say that is a 19-month process. We believe it minimizes the impact of the operations of the facility, and also maintains the mission-critical areas like the fueling station and fleet and admin, and really creates an ideal situation for the city and the users on the facility. So with that, we'd like to close.
So what sets A.D. Morgan apart? First of all, it's our great relationship with you guys, the city of Zephyrhills. We very much value that. We work great as a team together. We've proven that over time, and the partnerships are invaluable to the way we do business. Sell and maximizing value with tight budgets. The local market knowledge, really, we've been doing this for 35 years in the Central Florida area. It's what we do. Construction management at risk is the type of contract that we enter every time. So we are very familiar with that. And certainly we are committed to your mission. The city of Zephyrhills is extremely important to us, and we hope we've conveyed that here today. And with that, we'd like to close the presentation and open for any questions you guys may have.
All right, thank you, and perfect timing. And sorry about hacking through your presentation there. One of the things I did like that I heard was your approach to looking at each individual building as places to create savings. So I think that's a good approach there. And I'll open it up to the council for.
I have a question. Well, I guess a question. One thing that kind of intrigued me was when you said that you were working with DMA, and you thought they had about a $40 million project, and you got it down through creativity to $19 million?
Well,
That's pretty creative.
So let me clarify.
Could you explain that a little bit? or-
Yeah, so let me jump back up. Yeah, great question. Because, we had a lot of questions at the beginning too, when we got engaged. I'm just trying to flip back. It's stuck, come on. So DMA is in a unique situation, and they were given grant funding for the project, and they were given $19.8 million to begin with. And they designed, here it is. So they've designed the project, MRI Architects is the architect, and they've designed it to include everything that they would like for the project. And while also being cognizant that the project is not a $19 million project. So our task, our challenge that we're faced with is getting them to what they call an awardable base bid of $19.8 million. And an awardable base bid means that the building can be constructed, components of the building can be constructed for the $19.8 million, components of the site and the infrastructure, without giving them the entire thing. But what is built serves the purpose of their mission. And that means we're essentially building this building to begin with polished concrete floors in lieu of floor finishes. We're not going to do all the trim and the millwork just yet. And we're gonna save certain components of the project for the second phase of funding, that once they get that money encumbered, the 19.8, that's when they can go back to the state and say, look, state, we did get the 19.8, but the project actually cost X. So we need the remainder of the money to finish it, to complete. We can operate as needed today, but it's not done yet. So they can go back to the state and get the rest of the money. So what we're challenged with right now is getting them to that 19.8, which we have, which doesn't include components of the building, like the armory storage here The kitchen, weight room, and some of the, sorry.
We can't see it there, we can see it here.
Yeah, the mouse won't show there.
No.
And another component of the building. So essentially, we're going to be giving them this building right here. The core building, the site work, the retention ponds, the site infrastructure, the fleet maintenance component, and the motor pool will be deferred, or components of it will be deferred to the second phase. But as soon as we get to the awardable base bid in December, they're going to immediately turn around and go get the rest of the money, which is why we've broken it out into alternate bid items. So when we go to market, we're bidding the entire job. We're going to bid everything. So it'll come back at, $37, $40 million, whatever it comes back in exactly. And then we're going to break those pieces out and say, okay, here's what we can build today. Take these, go to the state, and get the rest of the money. And when you have it, we'll then loop it back in. So by the time we start construction, we can just incorporate it back in and continue building those pieces.
And you had said that, I think it was, you maybe, that our project is about it's 16, we're talking about 16 million, but we see about 19 million, so you'll have to kind of cut back or get creative.
Right now, when I look at historical costs based off of just square footage, and remember, all I have is a site plan with some squares and a narrative of the size of the building. So what I did is I took all the historical costs, I took what information I could gather, so if I, it would take a little while to pull up the budget, but I do have a very detailed budget where I drew this from. But what we would do is, as we're developing the budget, we'll be working with CPH if we're awarded. We'll start looking at it and breaking everything out in these little parts and pieces. And as I could get more information and more detail, that estimate gets tighter and tighter. And then as I go through the schematic and design development phase, which is at like 33 and 66%, I'll be able to go to the subcontractor market and start drawing in new costs. So I should be able to start tightening that, and we can see what we do might need to defer. I mean, as we develop it, it could be get into budget naturally as the design evolves, or if we need to look at, holding off on something or deferring it to another phase, then we can make that decision early on instead of doing a redesign in a panic at construction when we have 100% documents and all of a sudden you're like, we're over budget. We're going to be controlling that budget throughout the phase. So by the time we get to design development, we're going to know pretty much exactly where we're going to be and what you're going to be able to get, and hopefully it's everything. That's the whole goal.
And just to kind of further Jeremy's point, up to this point, what we have is a narrative that says, X building needs to be X square footage. It doesn't really say what it needs to be constructed. So there's a lot of assumptions into our estimate based on our knowledge of these types of facilities. But that's where we need to jump in and work with CPH to massage some of these things to say, okay, in this context for an admin building, CPH, this is what will work for the allowable budget. So let's work on designing that so that it does not exceed. But based on what we think we know today, based on the square footages, it's going to be a challenging budget.
Because the reason I kind of honed in on that was when we did the original ranking of our architects, the drawing that we were using had been done a couple years ago, and I think that had been at around 19 million. And then CPH said they could get creative, I guess, and get it down. So I'm wondering, anyway, that's made me wonder.
They haven't really started the design yet.
Right.
Right. We haven't really received or engaged with CPH yet.
Right.
Just because
Yeah,
of the
because,
selection
right,
process.
right.
So I don't know. We don't.
That's kind of, that's what's making me think that, anyway.
So imagine, if we could imagine this, some of the numbers that you used were the other facility that was very similar in size and scope to what we need. But that was about $400 a square foot. Now, as you start to, and that was priced and built in a market that was much hotter than it is right now in terms of material cost and construction cost. So if that the difference between that is about $330 a square foot versus $400 a square foot. So it's really not that significant. It's just the scale of these projects are so big that it's millions of dollars. So, thank you. I don't have any questions. It was a very good presentation. Thank you.
Mr. Miller?
The only question I had is, have you guys worked with CPH at all before? Are you familiar with their product and what they're doing, or?
No, we've not worked with CPH before. But we do understand a little bit about them.
Okay.
That they're a full-service in-house design firm that brings MEP, architectural, all the design disciplines to the table. We met briefly with the gentleman during our first phase interview and seemed to engage well with him. But I think sometimes there's an advantage to having a new perspective at the table with a design firm.
Yeah, well, I remember when they gave us their presentation, they had a certain software that they were using that was a little different. I figure you guys are all going to kind of work together on that.
And that was in our first phase, that was one of the cool things that, the spark started to ignite between us a little bit, because we use building information modeling in the Revit system, which they also use.
Okay.
And so we started just nerding out a little bit
Good.
on our ability to communicate at that level.
Good. So you don't see any problems working with them, and, okay,
No, we're set up.
thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation. And I was just looking, you had listed or said 12 projects, 12 municipal operation projects that you had completed fairly recently. Which one is the closest to what we're looking at doing?
The 40th Street project for the city of Tampa that we are in design. We haven't even started building it yet.
So the scale of it is pretty similar?
What about Claremont? Is that similar?
Yes. Yeah, I was going to say,
Okay.
Excuse me, please speak into the mic.
If we're not in the mic, thank you.
on their operational city campus.
Oh. Oh, you were brand new, starting new.
And working around it does cause a different set of issues, doesn't it?
The phasing component of it, this project, you have to phase it, you have to make sure that you got your operation.
Anybody else have anything?
The only other thing I was going to ask you, and I know we'll have to wait to respond until Ricardo gets his battery in, but what about getting with the employees that, just say the mechanics and the people who actually do the physical work in the building prior to having everything done, and then it's like, oh yeah, we forgot to ask the guys, they need this, or, they preferred one lift or another. I mean, do they get engaged in the process as well?
Go
And while he's fixing that, I'll follow up, because that was going to be my last comment, was like, working with CPH and with staff, like, for instance, this room is designed to be a multi-purpose room, and there are no electrical outlets in the floor, and we've discovered that with a podium, and so we want to make sure that as we go along, just follow up on what you're saying. Let's make sure we have everything that we're going to need down the road with it.
Yeah, absolutely. So to answer the questions, or points, yeah, absolutely. So early on in the programming phase, we're going to go through probably exhaustive meetings with the end users. Primarily at that juncture, we're participating, but CPH really is like the tip of the spear when it comes to facilitating those questions and answers. But we're sitting with them, we're at the table, we're bringing our knowledge and saying, hey, at City of Tampa, they wanted this. What do you think about that? And at Claremont, they wanted this, and that was really important for them. What do you think about that? And then, so we're bringing our thoughts to the table, CPH is bringing theirs, and it's really just a kind of a one cohesive, collaborative effort. But that's the beauty of getting on early. So many clients, believe it or not, like treat CM at risk almost like a hard bid situation. They'll hire an architect, and they'll take the documents, the design documents, to advanced DD or even an early CD set. And at that point, our hands are tied behind our back, because if we see something and we're like, wait a second, that doesn't make sense, that's going to cost too much money, they're going to charge the client to redesign. So at this point in the game, we have the most influence to weigh in and help them control cost on the job and control the outcome of what the facility's operating features will be. So this is the best time to be engaged.
I think the mayor had mentioned that the CPH had some I guess it was kind of in the cloud type system where you can kind of continually review the process as these plans mature, which makes a lot of sense, rather than going all this far and then you saying, hey, wait, sheets 4 through 8 or whatever they are not good, So is that, I mean, that will help with the process as far as being at least a little more efficient in getting it done?
Oh, most certainly. Yeah, no, I think what they're referring to is Revit, their Revit model. And through BIM, like Building Information Modeling, it's kind of like Heinz, right, name for
Three-dimensional, it's a three-dimensional
and it creates
interactive,
three-dimensional, perspectives of conceptual design that we have the ability to see and influence and ask questions and identify issues. But we have the same software systems to speak back and forth and as we work through that process.
And I like your answer on that, because it could be something that we miss too. And by saying, hey, this is what another city has maybe you might want this. So I appreciate that you're going to be kind of proactive in that aspect too. So that's good.
Well,
Go ahead, Steve.
In the city of Tampa, in the fleet maintenance area, what kind of cooling devices or aspects have you used in there to kind of make it a little more inhabitable?
Where the budget was with that one, they were only able to really bring in large fans. So they'll have the large overhead fans, and they have heaters in there and ventilation in there. So air conditioning, 20,000 square feet of.
You mean the bays?
The bay where it's.
Yeah, no, I know you can't air condition it, but I just wonder if there's some things that you can use to make it a little more habitable in the.
The large. They call them big ass fans.
big ass fans.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could say it.
I don't know if I can say that yet. I know.
That's the name of the.
I know. All right, 'cause
They do put those in there, and then there's also ventilation on the side, so it's sucking all the hot air out and doing everything it can to keep it cool.
They're moving.
Yeah, because I know when you're pulling in a sanitation truck or a fire truck, you can't air condition the place, but I've been in there talking to somebody, and I've just been drowning, and I guess they get used to it, but.
We did that at Claremont. That right there is that,
Great big fan.
yeah, great big fan.
Okay, all right, yeah, all right.
Mr. President, and Steve, I think that's a great point, because I think as you get the day goes on in a hot environment like that, your productivity goes down, you start making mistakes. I come from an agricultural background, so I kind of get that, so.
Okay, well, and thank you for your presentation, and if nobody has anything else?
Just have one more thing.
Okay.
I think it's kind of interesting that you're going to be doing a couple of other projects in town. Is there overlap in the team members, so there's some potential cost savings in supervision?
Right now, we have not overlapped the team members because they're different types of projects. And we've thought about that, and we've had the conversation with other owners. I don't really see that as it's hard to do that because they need to be on the site that they're being focused on, right? So there could be, for like my time.
Like the project
my
managers.
supervisory time,
Yeah.
Frank's supervisory time, Matt, yes, for sure, from an executive standpoint. But boots on the ground, we would have separate project teams on these projects.
Because they'll be there
to make sure they
24/7.
run the way they need to run.
Okay, thank
That
you.
brings up one more thing. Because you have the other jobs, does that help you when you go out to bid with vendors and things, because you have contacts with people that are already in the area?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, because, and
Yeah.
they see the book of work that's coming up in their area.
Right.
It becomes a lot more attractive. Yeah.
We're done.
Yep. It's
Okay.
time.
All right, thank you very much.
Chop, chop.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, good to see you.
Thank you.
On my phone. Having trouble with my.
I'm having a problem with my. And I'm watching the screen. I just got it.
Good. Hey, Billy.
Sorry about that.
No problem. Just whenever you're ready, just,
Ready, guys? Ready? Is everybody ready? All right. Well, first off, I want to go ahead and say thank you for having us here today, and thank you for allowing us to present to you for the City's Zephyrhills Public Works and Utilities Campus Project. With that said, my name is Johnny Santos. I'm the Director of Operations for our Wharton Smith Construction Group. And ultimately, our goal for this overall presentation for this evening is be able to relay to you why this team that we put together has the most recent, relative, and specific experience when it comes to building a project of this nature and a project of this magnitude. In addition to that, our team has gone through and we developed a full budget estimate analysis for this project, so we can truly hone in on the understanding of how the budget and the overall scope of work that has been developed for this project, how we can truly go through the process of understand what's going to be able to take to be able to do this magnitude with the budget that has been put together at hand. With that said, I'd like to go ahead and go on to the next slide and actually introduce you to the team. Again, my name is Johnny Santos. I have about 34 years of experience in construction, where the majority of that construction has been in public work type facilities.
To my left here is Stephen Gregory. Stephen Gregory will be our senior project manager for the project. And Stephen's going to be talking to you a little bit later in the presentation a lot about our specific experience on this particular type of project. From there, we have Brad Buffington. Brad is going to be our senior superintendent for the project. He's actually our veteran here. He has 18 years experience and 18 years actually working within Wharton Smith. And then last but not least, John Sealing. John Sealing is our pre-construction services manager. To us, he's known as Pre-Con John, mainly because of the fact that John has the capability to be able to take an actual just sketch on a napkin and create a full budget estimate based off those sketches. So with that said, I'd like to go ahead and just go into our next slide. Thank you. As far as experience with the city of Zephyrhills, we're presently working right now on the Hercules Park project. A couple things to note on this project, and something that we're very, very excited about, is that the project right now is scheduled to be completed approximately 30 days ahead of the original schedule that was established for the project. A couple reasons why we're able to get to this point was, one, we've been able to develop an owner direct purchase program for the project that not only has allowed us to save money for the project, but allow us to be able to capture a lot of the actual materials going to be needed in the project ahead of time. So with that, we were able to develop a schedule that's actually allowed us to be able to finish early. In fact, the owner direct purchase project has not only met the goal for the project, but we've exceeded it. And we're actually sitting at about $85,000 worth of savings that we're going to be able to put back into the project. Additionally, throughout the actual buyout of the project for our subcontractors, we were able to develop a process that allows us now to be able to identify additional savings that we're going to be able to use for the project. These savings are now being put back into the project, and essentially what's going to happen is we're going to have the capability to be able to add more scope of work to the project. One of those key things is the monument sign. When we originally started the project, we had to go ahead and take the understanding that we had some budget constraints. So not being able to put the monument sign was one of those things we had to go ahead and delete. Now that we're able to put money back into the project, we're going to be able to bring that monument sign back into the overall construction. So I talked a little bit about our specific experience. This is the City of Lakeland and new admin building shop facilities project. This is a project that all the aspects of this project are identical to the scope of work that we're going to be working with you on the City of Zephyrhills project. Stephen Gregory is going to actually go through a little bit later in the presentation and tell you about the actual details of the project. But the biggest thing we want to be able to portray on this one is that this is another one throughout the process of the project where we're not able to, well, not only were we able to stay on budget, but we're also able to exceed the schedule and actually finish 2 months early. So experience matters. In addition to the City of Zephyrhills project, this is a listing of projects that we've completed successfully throughout Warren Smith and throughout our teams. The biggest thing to note about these projects is that the similarity of the scopes of work. In addition to having phased construction, in addition to having active sites, these projects are allowing us, are giving us the capability to use the lessons learned on those projects to proactively bring them forward into this actual project itself. So now, not only are we going to be able to use those lessons learned, but now we're going to be able to proactively kind of understand where the budgets were for those projects and how we're able to effectively save money on those projects and use that for this project. So now I'd like to hand it over to Steve and talk to you about our management process.
Yeah, thank you so much, Johnny. So I wanted to go over our management processes and some of the programs that we utilize for our communication measures and document control procedures throughout the project. So as you can see right here, one of the programs that we do utilize is called Red Team. And you see in this photo is a snapshot on basically what you see. It's full transparency to the end user and the client, the design team. We want to remain fully communicative at all times. This program is a really good tool to utilize. You can go on this program and see where we stand at our current snapshot in time, our status of submittals, status of RFIs, overall buyout control documentation, our flow of schedule, our daily reports, which we'll be updating on a daily basis. You can see a snapshot in time, as well as our permit and inspection logs and how we incorporate our permit inspections into the overall project and schedule. Another program that we utilize is a program called Drone Deploy, which you can see on the bottom left-hand corner. This isn't just about flying aerials overhead and taking pictures of the aerial photos. This also incorporates a good measure to utilize for our virtual design and construction efficiency departments, as well as our BIM departments. This helps us coordinate our underground MEP services, as well as our overhead MEP and coordination for all of our subs. This helps us kind of streamline and flow our overall schedules to expedite the schedule, which saves time and money to the end user at the end of the day. So how do we get there? It's quality. It's getting it right the first time, which you'll see on our next slide. The steps that we'll be taking is getting all the information. From the beginning of the project, we want to have a key kickoff meeting with all the stakeholders and users, go over constructability reviews with the inspection departments and the permit departments, getting our submittal logs, having our coordination meetings with the design team, maintaining our RFI processes and procedures, and making sure that all services and scopes involved are ready to be programmed and executed. Which leads us into item number 2, is putting the people and resources in place. We want to make sure that we utilize the proper and projects control of our staffing matrices, as well as our document control processes and procedures, as I spoke earlier about Red Team, and creating our logistics plans and schedules and identifying our milestones and critical paths. And this gets us to number 3, making sure that we maintain quality control and getting it right. In essence of the critical path of the schedule, we want to identify these long lead times. That's going to be very important in turning over the project on time and hopefully under the allotted amount of time. So that's identifying our long lead item packages, getting those released early into the project from day 1 of construction, having those materials ready on site to install at the moment it's time for construction. And we'll utilize that also as well for early owner direct purchases. We're very knowledgeable with the city of Zephyrhills on how the owner direct purchases procedures are established, so we're very coordinated with that as well. Item number 4 is getting it done right, which Brad's going to speak of a little bit about our constructabilities.
Thank you, Stephen. Good afternoon. Although I'm going to be involved in every aspect of the quality journey, item 4, getting it done right, I'll be the actual boots on the ground guy out in the field, making sure that we're putting the work in place with quality, scheduling inspections, going through submittals, making sure we're getting the right materials, taking care of as-built for us to turn over at the end of the project, document control. Then step 5, we'll provide owner training at the end, complete set of as-built to go with, and we'll be there with you guys. I'll be there from the beginning and even well past the warranty period. The next big part of my job is safety. Ward Smith has a great safety program. Again, I've been here 18 years. We focus on everything, but a lot of it now is the new stuff that can kill you. Sticky is what we call it. You can see it in the picture. Actually, that's a picture of Stephen and I at our current project in Lakeland. But safety for this particular project, there's some considerations that I personally have. We know that it's an occupied campus. You've got traffic flow, you've got parking, you've got fleet vehicles that need to come in and out and get fuel. Fuel, that's the big thing, maintaining that fuel tank out there. We know that that's got to be maintained 24/7, during the process. And, with us out there, we'll make sure that happens. The next thing is our logistics plan. So I've been to the site. We've all been to the site. We're very aware of the setup that there is out there. What we do know is that it's definitely going to be a phased project. We'll just have to wait and see with the documents that come out, but it's going to be phased, and we know that you have the existing SCADA antenna attached to the old administration building that will have to stay working while we're out there. And you can see on this plan, we've got setups, barricades and all around the fuel tank. We've got our own construction entrance, lay down yard to kind of keep outside of y'all's area when we don't need to be there. And then I'll turn it over to Stephen for a little bit more.
Yeah, thank you, Brad. And just to reiterate, what Brad said, it's all about proactiveness for this type of project. We know an adjacency to the overall campus of this project is the municipal airport. We know that's very important, and we need to follow the FAA guidelines and regulations while we construct the projects. So I have reached out to Nathan Coleman personally. Like I mentioned earlier, with the kickoff meetings established, we want to have a meeting with him as well to make sure that we follow their guidelines and execute their procedures as well. Maintain full operations on your end as well as the municipal airport's end as well. This next slide right here, this is a very successful project that we completed for the city of Lakeland. It was a new administration shop facility. Why I want to kind of explain this overall sequencing and project, this is extremely similar to this overall layout and phasing of this project as well. We do have a phasing plan, which Brad talked on over on my left-hand side, which I'll talk on the schedule a little bit later. in the future of this presentation. But what I want to talk about is basically our discovery phase. When we mobilized out there, we had a kickoff meeting with all of our stakeholders and all of our coordination procedures. We identified early underground MEP efforts to make sure that they were completely operational at all times. In addition, if you see in that orange box on the upper right-hand corner, demo of phase 3, they had a communication tower that was very similar to the SCADA tower. We were able to successfully maintain that operational while we demoed out the rest of that orange area. In concurrency, we were able to kind of resequence some things where we built the administration building and the water shop and the meter shop as well, concurrent at the same time. With that being said, we were able to actually get you fully operational. They lost 0 days in their operations department. They were able to move in immediate notice into the new administration building. Then we were able to tear down the existing structures and expand the tank, the truck bays. So that being said, we had an original duration of 18 months. We were able to complete that in 16 successfully, which saved money to the end user at the end of the day. So why I'm saying this, if you could turn to the schedule on the next slide. This is very much in line of what we see right here. When we looked at the overall schematics of the phasing plan, we were able to identify, in the early release package, like I've discussed earlier, in our owner direct purchases of material, having those early items released is key. The electrical gear and mechanical equipment, releasing those, having those ready, staged, and stored on site, ready to install when the scope of work starts. Also, in essence, we know the administration building is also important, as well as maintaining the SCADA infiltration systems. So we want to make sure that that's phase 1, starting that construction process. As you can see, we have a 17th month duration, but what we look at here is we think we can get you an owner occupancy of that admin building, the ability to move in right around month 13. From then on, we start in phase 2, which we can demo out the existing structures and the expansions of the truck bays as well. So it'll take us to the 17th month with a 13th month move-in.
Council, Mayor, thanks. Yeah, so it's my job as Pre-Con John to kind of go over the estimate and the budget. When we saw the solicitation, we saw that there was a budget of $16.25 million. You can see here, we ran through 3 different scenarios. This is the first scenario with all the parameters of the project on here. Looks like our slide's a little jumbled there under L. However, after totaling it, we came out to $24.4 million. That was based off square footage cost on a real job that we're doing within Pasco County right now. This is real numbers, not our opinion, not what we think it's gonna cost. This is legitimate numbers. The project's Nottingham Fleet Facility. We're building it in Pasco County. I think it's right up the road. And we used those numbers based off the square foot you gave us in the parameters to reach that $24.4 million. Those are direct costs I have to add. Those aren't soft costs included, which would be our GC's fees, etc. So we're already at a very high budget. I ran through another scenario just for comparison's sakes of pre-COVID 2019 pricing. So these are buildings you could see in the yellow, 350, 150, 340, 200. Those are pre-COVID pricing. The pandemic did a lot to construction. We all know that prices went through the roof. So even with the pre-COVID pricing, with the same parameters, we're tracking 17.6 million. Again, stressing this, those are direct costs, not soft costs included. So really it's more than 17 million, but that's just for the job. Finally, we did a scenario of where can we try and reach the $16.25 million? Where can we maybe try and figure out some cost savings and be proactive before we even, hopefully get awarded the project? We looked at the admin building, the expansions of B, D, and H, and then the fleet maintenance facility as a pre-engineered metal building. And then I took K and L and just eliminated them completely from the job for the time being. The site work is still included in there, so your building pad, your rough grade, your utilities to those buildings are in this price, but the actual buildings themselves are eliminated. That got us to roughly 17.3 million. I know you don't see that on there, I apologize, but came out to about
350 a square foot? That's at 350 a square foot, right? according to that?
Yes, ma'am. Well, the 350 a square foot for those two buildings. Yes, ma'am. So it came out to about $17.4 million. That includes our soft costs. On the bottom, you can see right under site work, soft costs is cut off at about 2.5 million. So that's our way forward. That's what we would like to present to you, is to look through the project parameters, maybe table the K&L buildings for the time being until more funding comes, to then build those at a later date, work with the architect, work with your team, work with the council, and figure out how we can incorporate those two buildings, again, at a later date. Cost savings is huge. The Nottingham Fleet facility that we're working on, there was a budget of $80 million for that project. This was back in October. We went to the board, we presented $80 million. The architect was in agreement with us. Nottingham came back and said, we have 60 mil. That's $20 million. That's a lot to VE. We spent the next 7 months, eating, drinking, sweating, sleeping, pre-construction to get to that close as we can to that 60 million. Ended up getting to the $70 million mark, and I'm happy to say we got into contract with that project for 70 mil. We saved the county 10 mil over 7 months of cost savings in VE. This is all in correspondence with our subcontractors. Our subcontractors and our outreach, our presence in the area is immense. We have over 3,500 pre-qualified subcontractors, and I'd like to add that on those last slides, those square foot numbers are from subcontractors that all the firms are going to be using, truthfully. I mean, we all use the same site guys. We all use the same pre-engineered guys. There's very few contractors here and there that are, golden eggs is what we like to call them in pre-con. They're all the same people. So yeah, we have 3,500 pre-qualified subcontractors. Here for Hercules Park, you could see we had 6 bids. That's more than the 3. And I'll pass it over to Johnny until the Q&A session to keep talking about the subcontractors.
So in addition to our pre-qualification process, we recognize that our subcontractors are where we live at. That's how we're going to be able to build these projects. So we really want to appreciate our subcontractors. Here's a couple of examples that we've gone through. Actually, Hercules Park, where we recently had a top-and-up party where we celebrated the subcontractors, brought them lunch, and basically just let them know how much we appreciate the work that they're doing for us. And that's part of the reason why we're able to get the subcontractors to bid for us. Addition to that, we recently had another top-and-up party recently with this team, where we did the same thing. So that's actually bringing more subcontractors through the door to be able to bid for us on all of our projects. Next slide. In addition to that, we're heavily involved with the community. We recently did a Habitat for Humanity bill for East and Central Pasco County, where we went in and built out 3 of their actual buildings, or the homes themselves. And I'm very proud to say that I've recently been selected to be a Habitat for Humanity board member as well. Another example of one of our community involvements is On Bikes. This is an organization that we team up on a yearly basis where they build bikes for underprivileged kids throughout the state of Florida and right here in Pasco as well. This is one that we're very proud of because we've been teamed up with them for the past almost 10 years now. So in conclusion, why Warren Smith? Client relationships. Bottom line is that 90% of what we do is public work, and 85% of that is repeat client work. So our relationships are our lifeline. It's everything we do. If we don't get that letter of recommendation, we don't get that reference from you, we didn't do our jobs. Community involvement. This is another big one. Just like we talked about with the Habitat for Humanity, ultimately I live 14 miles from this job. I'm committed to this project. So this whole team's going to be committed to this project as well. And then finally, solution providers. We want to have the capability to be your solution provider. That's part of the reason why we came out and provided you the full budget estimate, so you understand where we're able to have the capability to be able to make this project and do a project that's going to meet your expectation and actually be built for you for the expectation and for the budget that's allowable for the project. So with that said, I think I'm just about out of time. And I'd like to thank you so much for having us. And I'd like to just open up the floor for any questions you may have. And we look forward to the opportunity of being your construction manager of choice for this project.
All right, thank you, Johnny. And first of all, I like hearing that we're 30 days ahead of schedule on the Hercules thing. Now, I know a hurricane can come along and kill that at any time, but that's good.
Barring any rain, but we are.
Yeah, that's good to hear.
We're excited about that.
So, questions? We'll start.
I have a question then. If you could go back to the slide where you're talking about, I want to clarify and make sure I heard this right. not building K and L at this time as part of this project? Is that what you're saying?
That would be the scenario to get as close to the $16.25 million budget, yes.
So it would be kind of a two-phase project, apparently. So what that cuts out is the utility admin and utility storage?
The equipment and the
Equipment, yeah.
to creation of the.
All right, thank you.
And that's just a scenario that we came up with based off the budgets that are allowable for the unit rates. You know, that transition of, you know, what's not going to be built can be kind of like worked through as we work with the architect and the engineers and ultimately make a decision on what's going to be truly needed versus what's wanted. That way we can try to figure out what's going to be required for the budget that's at hand.
Right, and to Johnny's point, I mean, we teeter-tottered between how we were going to do this presentation to the council and to the mayor, but, you know, we wanted to be honest, truthfully. I mean, we could come up here, I could lie and say, we could do it for $16.25 million. I can tell you right to your face, sign us the contract right now. That's not fair to you, that's not fair to us. More importantly, it's not fair to our subs.
So the price prior to that was 24 million? So you're saying those two buildings would be about another $8 million for just those two?
Give or take, it also includes reduction of our fee GCs, the schedule. We're eliminating 3 months off the schedule, different site work. So if you look at just the building, it's not equivalent to 4.8 million each, but all in total, what we would be decreasing from the project. We went from a 17-month schedule with all the buildings to about like a 14, 15-month schedule with removing those two buildings. So we'll save time as well.
Oh, okay.
And I want to follow up, and thank you for the presentation too, by the way, good job. What was K&L, and the other thing I do appreciate is you're like saying your budget's too light, basically, from what you have experienced in the market at this point. Maybe we get into it and stuff starts falling. I doubt it, but you know, y'all know that better than we do. But that, how many square foot was that we would eliminate from the project about?
So the K was 13,500 square feet, and L was 13,700 square feet. Both
26?
about 27,000.
27.
Too.
But those are two individual buildings, keep in mind. I didn't have time to mention that another value engineering or cost savings method we can apply is combining both of those buildings together and maybe making a 20,000 square foot single building, maybe 2 stories with the offices on top and the warehouse on the bottom. That's what Nottingham is doing right now. Their public works building, it's a 70,000 square foot building. More than half of the first floor is storage. All the offices on the second floor, they get a good view, all that stuff. So it was good for them. But that was another instance. If you do that and you combine those two buildings, you now are savings on MEP systems. You're not doing a separate mechanical, separate electrical. You're combined, and you're eliminating, for lack of a better term, 2 sides of an exterior wall on a building. Because if you think a building, a box, or a rectangle, eliminating this and eliminating this, that is a substantial cost, especially in metal right now. So that is just another scenario. I think for Nottingham, during our 7 months, I put together maybe 15 different scenarios, all of cost savings that the architect and the county chose, which way they wanted to go, essentially.
I have a couple of questions. I appreciate you bringing real numbers in. I really do. I know, you know, this is a huge project for us, right? This is is it the biggest project we've done?
Dollar-wise, yeah.
Yeah, budget-wise. So, you know, we're nervous on that. I don't see millions, okay? So it takes me a little while. So I appreciate you giving us real numbers, because you're right, you could lie to us. We don't want that. So when you get into it, if you see wish lists that are out there for this department maybe has this wish list and this one, are you able to look at those wish lists and say, hey, if you take it back to this is going to save and this, and you feel comfortable with that?
Yes, ma'am. To give you an example, the Nottingham facility, there was 5 different entities. There was public works, there was utilities, there was fleet facility, fleet maintenance. You know, everyone had a say. Everyone was offering different amounts of money. What we did is we dissected each building, which, you the fleet maintenance guys had theirs, Parks and Rec had this section, these people this. We looked into reprogramming, what do we want versus what do we need? And we went to each division to essentially come up with that $70 million budget. So everybody got what they needed. Some people didn't get exactly what they wanted, but we saved $10 million.
Yeah.
To make the project go forward.
I'm kind of afraid we're going to end up with some of that in this project for sure. Have you ever worked with CPH before?
Our company as an organization has worked with them overall.
Okay.
We do have experience working with them. We haven't worked with them within this area, but we do have experience overall with our company, though.
Okay, good. And so you feel comfortable interacting and integration with their company?
Yes, very much so.
Okay.
I mean, just like John was saying, I mean, our goal right now is to be basically your partner, to be able to come into this project, give you real factual information so we can make, a collaborative decision on how we want to move forward. And that's basically how we want to be able to portray ourselves and actually work for you as an organization. Because, if for us to come in, we want to make sure that at the end of the day, not only are we meeting your expectations, but we're exceeding your expectations. And the only way to do that is just come in and be able to be, truthful for me from day one.
And appreciate, being proactive with I don't even remember what the K and the L buildings were supposed to do, but, I mean, that was a great thing to think about combining them too. I mean, what would be the reasoning for having two buildings right next to each other? I mean, so if there's cost savings in other aspects of the project too, by doing those types of things, be nice to look at that, so.
One thing to mention too, I know John mentioned about combining those two buildings. In the past, we've actually been able to find even more savings when we do that kind of conglomeration, based on the fact that since this is a pre-engineered metal type buildings, once you combine the two of them, as long as we keep it within a standard size, we're able to go ahead and get those from the actual manufacturers. Not only we can get them faster, but now they're not going to upcharge us for a special size for a pre-engineered metal building as well.
The smaller the pre-engineered metal building, the more expensive it is an easy way to think of it.
Well, it saves on retention too. I mean, if you're cutting that whole building out, I mean.
Site work, really.
Yeah, can I ask a question of Billy now?
Yeah.
Well,
I mean-
and
All right, I'll wait. Thank you, I don't want to take up your time.
Okay, well, I thank you for your presentation, and really appreciate all you brought to us and a couple things that we talked about, so, thank you.
Thank you so much. Again, thank you so much for having us, and we look forward to the possibility of being your construction manager of choice for this project.
Thanks for the good news on Hercules.
yeah, and thank you for the good work at Hercules.
Thanks for the good news on Hercules.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, you all are invited when we get ready to open this thing up.
Yeah.
Monumental.
Oh, we'll be there.
The tree's coming next week, so be ready for it.
All right, we're ready.
Interest in, please make a selection based off pre-construction, because the pre-construction department of a company is going to let these guys be able to actually deliver a successful project. So, just.
Hey, Pre-Con John.
We like that, Pre-Con John. Appreciate it.
It is. Thank you very much. Well, nope.
Thank you.
Is the question and answer time 10 minutes or 15 minutes? Oh, 10, 20 and 20?
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good to be here. It's not raining, we're all okay?
So far.
Ellie, how you been doing?
Good, how are you?
Doing great. So the clicker is here?
Yeah. He's getting the.
We have a fourth person that'll be coming in, they'll probably walk in after we start, but get y'all ahead of schedule. I know y'all got a meeting at 6. No, the restricted fonts, of course. My team's great at restricted fonts. As many times we tell them to remove the restricted fonts, they're always popping up. That's all right. Good, so.
Okay, I think he's got the PowerPoint up, so whenever you're ready to start, I guess.
Okay. Well, good. We'll introduce ourselves real quick. Tim?
Hi, I'm Tim Sewell, Regional Director, which will be Principal in Charge. Oh, I'm sorry. Good afternoon. I'm Tim Sewell. I'm Regional Director, be Principal in Charge for the Ajax team for the project.
And I'm Rick Guerra. I'll be your General Superintendent with Ajax on this project. And I'm Jay Smith. I'm president of Ajax, and thank you again. It's really an honor to have the opportunity to talk to you all today about your public works facility and complex. Again, a little bit about Ajax. Where do I need to point? All right, good. A little bit about Ajax. It's founded 66 years ago by my grandfather, Blocksmith. We have grown since those early days. Now we have 16 offices throughout the Southeast. We cover from North Carolina down to Key West. But we focus on CM at risk in the public sector. So this is what we do on a daily basis. And Tim and Rick and their teams, this is what we do consistently. So because of that, we have about 80% repeat customer business. So once we establish a relationship, again, having that family culture, we believe that's how we treat our clients too, is that family atmosphere. And so we do several projects. As an example, Pasco County Schools is one of our clients. We've done now 50 plus project with Pasco County Schools. So once we start that relationship, we go for several years. But specifically for public works, something we do a lot of. So we've done 24 public works fleet type facilities, got several ongoing, which I'll talk to you about here in a minute. But again, very proud of that track record. So let's talk about your job. Again, complex project because it's on an existing compound. We got to keep you in operation as we hopscotch around. That fuel island facility is really important in how we access, and we'll talk about how we're going to do that. We're right next to the airport, so working with the FAA, which our team has a lot of project experience working around airports. Most notably, we just finished the new Monroe County EOC, which was on the airport grounds right at the end of it. So again, understanding the protocols of having to work through there. New construction, you got 14,000 square foot admin facility, you got 14,000 square feet of fleet maintenance, you got almost 14,000 of utilities office and storage, another 13.5 of utilities heavy equipment, and then we're doing expansion of 3 of your facilities there as well. All the while we're, again, demolishing and doing multiple phases and trying to keep everything up in operation as we move forward. So our team members and our experience, again, Ajax is about 280 men and women that cover the Southeast. We've got about 40 project teams that work on projects like this, specifically type work. For the Tampa Bay market, though, we have 72 men and women that live and work around this area that service our projects and our communities, like Zephyrhills when we work for a community like yourselves. But our project team specifically we laid out is made up of a pre-construction and support team, and then the on-site project team led by Dan and Mike and assisted by Brian and DJ. So these teams work on public works facilities. They're completing 2 of them right now as we speak. They also have a great detail of knowledge of this area in Pasco County. Dan specifically worked with Billy previously right up the road, built the city hall and police department. So a lot of knowledge and access around what's going on in this area. Again, that experience includes 24 public works type projects. To run through a few of them, this was the Florida Department of Transportation Brevard Operations Center Complex. Addition renovation, we had 2 hurricanes while we were managing this project. They had to stay open for the spur line. The rail line was right there, access. We had to keep the fuel operations open the entire time. This was a hardened facility, hardened for Cat 5 storms, so very complex project, completed on time and on budget. Fort Walton Beach, new field office complex, they hired us as a design build team. Architect worked for us. We combined 6 different campuses where all these operations, we designed and built them a brand new complex, completed on time and on budget there. Next is Monroe County Transportation Internal Service Facility. This was a Cat 5, of course it's in Monroe County, so it's got to be hardened, but all of the similarities of your site, except it was a much more complex, tighter site because of course being in the Keys. OUC St. Cloud, this is the Orlando Utilities Commission, their new facility. This is a net zero facility. This is about a $65 million project, phase 1. We'll have a phase 2 behind it, but really unique, complex project. Included a floating PV solar farm because they're trying to go net zero. The next one is Volusia County's Public Works Complex. Again, 3 facilities on this grounds, completed 2.5 months ahead of schedule, included fleet maintenance, vehicle storage, O&M facilities just like yours. The Punta Gorda Service Center down for Punta Gorda Charlotte County Schools. This project was completed 2 months ahead of schedule. Very successful project. talk about two that are currently just in construction. So the town of Mount Dora, right down the road from you all. This is a modern facility built, being currently under construction. We're just starting the site work on this. Unique things here, they're planning for a future EV for their operation and maintenance facility. So planning for the future, again, we're not all there yet for where this is going, but they're trying to plan and think through those things and making sure we're building the backbone in for the future growth of their facilities. This is another one that's under construction, Manatee County Sheriff's Office, their fleet services facility, very similar size and complexities to yours. We're actually in charge of buying all of the equipment for their facility, so a little bit different than some of the other ones. They asked us to do that. So what does that mean when you run through all that experience? It means that our team are experts at building these type facilities. We've learned a lot from them. So you've shortlisted 3 really good construction managers, but what do they bring to the table during the design phase for we've seen this that does not work, and we know this does work, and help you plan for those during the design phase. So when you get into the facility, we've thought through those things. We also look at the installs of your major pieces of equipment. So everything about these facilities, you're building these core and shell of these facilities, but everything inside them has to run correctly and has to be planned out. You've got third-party vendors that are going to be coming in, making sure you're planning according to those. We just finished Furman Ford's brand new facilities as well, and so really complex. Their vendors were coming out of Michigan, and so having to coordinate with them off-site and making sure they were done correctly are all things that our teams brings to the table. So I've told you a lot about our experience. Now I'm going to let Tim and Rick talk about how we're going to deliver it. Rick? Tim? Sorry.
All right. Thanks, Rick. What we talk about on all of our jobs is it really talks about the communication that we do with our owners and with our design consultants. We start that out with a team integration huddle, which is really to drive those critical elements of every job we engage in, to set those priorities that are key to the owner and key to the design consultants and us, and then create responsibility and accountability through the whole process. What we've proven out over the years is if we can identify that early on and we can capture that, then we can create a checklist, create a log, and create a policy procedures manual that's going to take us from start to finish on your job, successfully meeting budget, meeting schedule, meeting quality requirements. This is a picture of a BIM modeling that we're currently doing. Jay mentioned the Manatee County Sheriff's Office Fleet Facility. This is a model that we're currently developed and worked out of the Revit design from the architect. We built this model to coordinate the inside of this facility. So we're basically 2 things. One is make sure it all fits, make sure it's all coordinated, make sure all the MEP and F utilities are tied in, but also make sure it works for your workers and works for your craftspeople that are working on the vehicles within a facility like this. And this gives the owner a very great glimpse at what it's going to look like before we actually built it. We believe this is an added value, and we do this on just about every project we have going to construction. From an economic model and budgeting standpoint, what we work to do is always set the bar and set the budget early. So we do that with the economic model. So of those jobs that Jay's identified, we will take 3 or 4 of the more relevant projects and we will do a cost analysis by division as it compares to your job. So what this allows us to do is align the budget and align the design that's future to come to make sure that we stay within budget. So we don't do it like the typical way, which is the light blue line, which kind of says we do a budget and then we fight to bring it back down into alignment. We do more like what you see with the dark blue line, which is we budget estimate options through the entire process. So we may, although we have deliverables, we may be looking at a half a dozen to a dozen budget options through each one of those deliverables. What we found is that keeps us a lot closer in line with your budget so that when we go to GMP, you have price certainty in that regards. We're obviously dealing with a lot of different specialty equipment manufacturers when it comes to fleet and public works side facilities. We know these manufacturers. We buy early from these manufacturers in order to ensure the equipment's delivered on time. We think that's an added benefit. Again, experience matters in these kind of facilities, and you really need to bring in a contractor that has that depth of knowledge of the local market. In addition to that, we're always looking at cost budget options. So whether it's what's the fleet service flooring going to be? We've done a number of polished concrete approaches that are very cost economical and meet ADA requirements for slip resistance. That's an approach we took at Furman Ford project that just finished up for us, or it could be, or it could maybe more of a sealed concrete approach. So we want to give you those budget options for those kind of approaches. Also looking at the types of lift. Furman Ford had cassette hydraulics. That's one of the first ones we applied. A very neat system, very clean system because it keeps the lift, localized to the slab. But we also want to look at the more cost-effective 2-post or 4-post system. So again, flushing these items out early is the way that you ensure that your budget gets maintained throughout the whole process leading up to construction. This is definitely an economic boom for the city. We want to maximize that. We want to find ways to be able to document what is the economic give back to the city. We have a couple of different forms that we use. Based on our tracking of this metric, 76% of construction dollars we believe does actually flow back to your city. And then also really using our job site trailer as a secondary hub for workers that come to our trailer. We advertise that. Come to our trailer, we'll connect you up with the appropriate subcontractor trades or with us as may be needed so that we can encourage that local building of employment within your city. We believe that's a benefit. So it really comes down, when you're talking cost, it does come down to how price certainty you can be. And as a public agency, we know that's important. This is a listing of some of the more recent public works facilities that we've completed or is in process. You can see the schematic design versus the GMP and the estimate there. We take a lot of pride in setting that first schematic design estimate because that's what you can really go to the bank on, and we believe that that's why our experience is able to hone in on what the actual budget is going to be for your project. Certainty really comes down to some other things as well. Pre-engineered metal building and switch gear. We all have heard these rumors throughout the industry. All of this stuff is harder to come by. It has gotten a little better over the last few months, but we're still seeing switchgear running 60 to 75 weeks, depending on the switchgear sizing that you have. Pre-engineered metal buildings can running up to, 6 weeks to get to submittals, but then you got another 24 to 30 weeks to get the actual building delivered. So these things and elements we're going to have to review, but it also going to play into your Category 5. If you want these hardened facilities, then most likely you're going to a different budget option. We'd like to flush that out early in terms of the structural system that's going to be done. We're also going to maximize the ODP savings. We do that day in and day out because so much of our work is public sided. ODP is a place that we can save monies and put more money back in the sticks and bricks, of the project. Me? All right, so let's talk a little bit overview on the project schedule. So Rick is going to walk you through kind of the phasing diagrams of how we see the flow of the project. What we've looked at so far is starting the project, being in a position to early release the pre-eng or the critical long lead components early, which we're doing on just about all of our projects now. Releasing those elements, by the end of the year, put them out for bid, do it competitive pricing, but at least get those critical elements on order in an envisionment of starting the work in February of 2025. So we've got 2 phases of work that we're going to walk you through. The first phase getting delivered substantially fully complete in May of 2026, and that leads us into phase 2 of the work, all while keeping your campus occupiable and functional for the things that you need that campus to do while we're building these additions and new buildings. So with the final phase 2 being complete in July of 2027. So with that, Rick, is this you?
So I'm going to take you through site utilization as we see it. We realize we created this in a vacuum, and we're going to have to get with you to make sure that it works going forward. Having said that, this is an aerial of your site now. As you can see by the blue lines at the top, we've identified water mains going down the airport road, and as well water main, sanitary, and overhead power lines over here on the south. What I want you to to see there in the yellow, that's your fueling station. We know that has to stay operational from day one. We cannot get in the way of it. We can't do anything to it. We got to make sure you guys can get to it. So we mobilize to the site. The first thing we do is put up perimeter fence and go ahead and get started. We build our access roads. Our primary entrance is on the top there, coming in through Airport Road, secondary through the south. We've built a temporary staff parking lot for your people to be able to park out there on the side. Again, the fueling station stays open. And we've also, at this time, have constructed a new permanent entrance into your parking lot. August 2025, we've built retention ponds. We've got the site looking pretty good. We've started foundations in Building A. Through November, Building A, construction admin, we're doing interior build out. We're erecting the vehicle barn, and we've started foundations in Building L. Through May of 26, Building A, we're helping you move into your building. We are, again, finishing build out in Building L at this time. And, June, August 26, you're in your new building. You have access to it. By now, we've gone ahead and we've relocated the construction fence back to the other side. We've demoed the buildings that are due to be demoed. Notice that we've built you some entrances so you can still get into F and E as well as H. And we've moved a new construction entrance for ourselves over on the construction side. January 2027, we've put the additions on D and B as well as the underground going in Building G for the extension there. And April, we continue with our build outs in G. We erect Building D and B as far as the internals, starting putting together the insides of the buildings. In July, you have a complete building, beautified, ready to go, and ready for you guys to move in and take control. As far as safety is concerned with Ajax, we build a lot of buildings. Nothing more important to Ajax than safety. On each and every one of our projects, we have a safety-specific safety manual that we utilize on the project. It has our site signage, it shows our restricted areas, our site security. Every one of our superintendents are OSHA certified. We're going to have flagmen at the gates if needed, subcontractor access, and subcontractor parking. And it goes without saying that a clean job site is a safe job site.
One of the tools that we've started using, in addition to the BIM modeling that I mentioned earlier, is some open space or cubic type programs where we can do side-by-side comparisons between what's in the model and what's actually in the field. It becomes a great tool, not only from a quality check and another check within quality that it's going in right, but it also from a communication tool. And we've used this from communication within the internal team to communication with other stakeholders that are surrounding the job and involved in the job and interested in the job, especially when, not that I'm necessarily a proponent of doing everything teams-wise, it seems like that's where we're going. This becomes a tool for that as well. We also do QR codes on all major pieces of equipment. This is a quick way for any smart device to be able to click on the QR that's on that piece of equipment, pull up the maintenance data, pull up the training, video, pull up the warranty information. It really makes this very easy.
Especially on their specialty equipment.
Absolutely. From a warranty standpoint, it doesn't get any simpler. You're calling the project manager. He's going to walk each individual issue through to its completion. He's going to be communicating through the entire process. You never lose that project manager. So Dan Dreyer, he's going to build your facility. He's going to stay with you through the long haul. And then obviously we do an 11-month walkthrough. We're really more about the relationships and building those relationships, so we really never go away.
So now I'd like to conclude why you should select Ajax as your construction manager. As I said at the beginning, this is what we do. We understand construction management, but specifically we understand public works and fleet facilities. They're very unique. While they're not a rocket ship, we're not trying to send anybody to the moon, these are really complex, unique projects. You have outside vendors that are very stringent with their standards. And so making the decisions up front, knowing the pros and cons of each one of those decisions you make is truly important. That's where a construction manager with our experience comes in. We lean in on CPH. We'll tell them we've seen that work and we haven't seen it work as well. And hey, let's go down and look at Manatee. Let's go over and look in Volusia. Let's go look at Mount Dora. It's under construction. Let you all see those things, make good decisions, because you get a chance to build a facility like this one time, probably for 30 years. So let's make sure we get it done right. So we bring that horsepower and that experience. We do that in a team environment. Again, we believe in that family culture that we all believe in, and that's how we treat our clients. We know the Pasco County market, we know the Zephyrhills people, and so we're going to engage them and bring them part of it. So we thank you. We ask that you select Ajax your construction manager, and we'll open up for any questions you have.
All right, and thank you very much, Tim. Great presentation, and I'll start down here with Steve again.
What is your total time estimate for this? You said, one slide said 11 months, but, I mean...
The phases, the two different phases. So we start with an early package in 2025, in early 25. So a lot of it's going to be dependent upon when we think that pre-engineered metal building is going to be hit to be able to get there. So we start with an early site package to get out there, get the foundations in place, so we can start the erection of, we focused on building A. This is a unique site, so this is something we'll want to talk about as a team. Do we look to build the next two buildings first, K and L, because they're less, they can be done quicker, or do we focus on A? We focused on A because it's the larger, more complex project. It's the administration building. So we have that building wrapping up in early 26. So we start, it's about a 12-month build on building A, and then we shift the focus then on building K and L, because we start moving everybody out of the administration area into building A. We start wrapping up building K and L, which then allows us to go in and protect ourselves on that site, separate. Now you got full access to that area. We do to the demolition. You have the alternate access to F and E, and then we've created a new we've kept H open on both sides. We saw that it needs to be accessed on both sides for that, and working with you all in there. So starting around mid-June of 26, end of summer 26 is when we start phase 2, and then we wrap up that phase in early 27. So they're about
months.
Yeah.
29 months total for both phases of work.
Right. About 2 12-month phases with demo in between.
So there's definitely ways we can talk, but we did this in a vacuum. I think a big part of what we were proposing to do is really sit down with all the stakeholders, flush it out, sit at the table. That's part of that team integration I mentioned about, and really saying what is the preference for the city in terms of what comes online first, and then how can we bring that to bear as quickly as possible. The old saying, time is money.
Yeah, I was about to say. If we go ahead.
Oh, you go ahead.
If we can do the project in one phase or less of the 2-phase process, it saves you money because you're spending more time, cost on our staff and on the general requirements and conditions out there on that site. But sometimes it's what you have to do if you're going to do a occupied phase addition renovation like this. But if there's a way we can come together as a team to figure out how we can shorten that and do it in 1 phase or 1.5 phases, then it's much more streamlined and put more money back into buildings.
And I think our schedule approach to some degree did align out with at least some of the earlier discussions by the design teams that had presented. So we did take a moment.
Speak into the microphone.
Yeah, come on. We did take the time to look at the CPH's, scope of work. So we kind of looked at that. We looked at a couple of others, and that kind of the way we mimicked our schedule. But again, we can flush out. We want to hone it down as quickly as we can, and like we say, that saves money. We want more money going into the sticks and the brick and the concrete and the finishes than we do within our general conditions for staffing.
You don't have a cost estimate built into this at all?
Yeah, we did that economic cost model we talked about.
Right.
So what this does, and this is sort of an initial baseline, but let me walk you through the sheet. This represents 4 representative projects with the actual dollars in today's dollars. So we escalate these numbers depending on the time that the project was bid, and we get it to today's dollars. And this is by divisional breakdown. So as you can see, if I take those 4 projects that are very similar in nature to your projects, we're anywhere from $284 to $812 a square foot. It's a big range. I know why some of that is. Some of those projects we provided full equipment, like the Manatee Sheriff's Office fleet building, and had $1.5 million of equipment in it. These other jobs did not. So we can rationalize that. And then what we do is we take your budget, what we perceive your budget to be, and then we say, where do we need to be overall by division to stay within your budget? So that's basically $351 a square foot. That's what we have to manage CPH and the other stakeholders with, is if we're over in a budget line, in a divisional line, okay, where's that money gonna have to come from? What other potential budget options do we have to look at to maintain this? And this is so critical. I don't know of any other construction manager that takes this approach, but establishing this early, right up front, will keep us in line and help us make those critical decisions that it takes to stay within budget. But that's, when we tag this out at the 18 million budget, the square footage is what we'd have to come in at the 351.
So explain.
That's both phases.
Yeah, for both phases. So explain to him. So the first detailed.
Come to the microphone, yeah.
The first detailed estimate we're going to get from the design team is a schematic package. So when we get that schematic package, we're going to do a detailed takeoff. And a lot of times the engineer consultants have not been engaged yet. So there's no MEP really designed in there. So we base a lot of analysis and assumptions based on our experience, into the design of those MEP systems. We then sit down with the design consultants and say, this is what we're planning for the electrical gear. This is what we're planning for the generators to be servicing. This is the mechanical systems we've provided. So we ferret all that out, and then we wrap that up into what we all as a team believe is the schematic estimate. So we provide you a new schematic estimate. Say it's $16 million compared to the $15 million budget. We look at those line by line items, as Tim was saying, and compare them to what we ferreted out in that model. And that's when we start looking, all right, our electrical is 10% over what we anticipate. Why is that? Is it because this is going to require emergency generator on 60% of the facility instead of the 30% we assumed up front? What are those driving factors? So if it is what we all agree it needs to be, then we got to find 10% out of one of those other packages. Is it finishes? Is it those flooring we talked about? Do we need to go to the 4-post instead of the cassette lifts? We go into those details and we make that decision there at the team and say, do we want to move forward, or do we need to pare something back so that we're getting back in budget so we can go to the next design phase? And those are the important steps you take, and that's how you build the confidence to go to the 100% design to get a guaranteed maximum price. But it starts right here.
All right, thank you.
Mayor?
Yeah, that's another great point Rick just brought up. We have 9 full-time estimators. That's all they do is pre-construction design. So it's a little
5 minutes from here.
Yeah, all in our office there in Oldsmar. So this is what they do, is this conceptual-based estimating, which allows us to be successful when we go to a given guaranteed maximum price.
Good. So have you worked with CPH before?
We have not. No, ma'am, I have not. Tim, did you prior?
I've worked with CPH in the past, in some kinds where they were more of a design consultant and not the lead. But I have some familiarity with them. What I think is most important there is that upfront sit down. It's amazing what we can all get in alignment on when we sit down and we really say, let's take a day, let's flip through your program, let's make sure we understand their program that they've offered up, and make sure that we're all on the same page. We do a day of that, we'll become best friends pretty quickly.
That's good. So, and you'll kind of partner with the staff too and find out exactly where the must-haves and where things can be cut back, and, okay, perfect.
That's that team integration meeting he talked about, where you align everybody's, what the goals are, what the wants are, because there's going to be a lot of wants in a facility like this. So we create that shopping list as well. And so when we start identifying buyout savings or contingency savings that we have the ability to, we start utilizing, looking at that shopping list to make sure we add those back in.
Thank you.
So I have a few questions. So you know that CPH actually has the MEPs that are integrated into their organization. So one of the things that I would ask you is, when you were reviewing their scope, you would have known whether or not, for example, the building was supposed to be hardened. Or you might, another thing that I was wondering about is when we talk about budgeting. So with these cost estimates that you came up with, it looks like there's a probable cost of $18 million. There's a fluctuation in the different cost per square foot. For example, the cost for the administrative building might be, $489 a square foot, whereas the cost for the metal building, and which doesn't have as much infrastructure, might be $200 a square foot. But based on that, how did you arrive at the $18,000? What is that generally as a cost per
18
square foot?
million.
The 18 million.
That's the stated budget we were told that this project was at. So what we do is we take your budget and distribute those costs across all those divisions of work.
For example, with the Manatee Sheriff's Office Fleet Building, if you take out sans equipment, what was the average cost per square foot for that particular facility?
The equipment cost for Manatee was $1,264,000. So there's always some equipment that's going to be in every job. So say you could take 1.1 million out. So that line item there is worth $46 a square feet. So maybe we end up at, $10 a square foot or $5 a square foot for that equipment line if the owner is going to buy the equipment. If not, if you're looking for your CM to buy the equipment, then that's probably a pretty good target in terms of a square foot cost. Your comment on the, recognizing there's different types of buildings on this campus. So as we sit down and we start expanding on where we started here, we do look at those differing elements, and then we may pull in some different jobs that are more for, like the administration building. We know this 3 jobs have more of an administration flair or requirement to it, and then we would do the same comparison for it. So again, we did this in a vacuum. We kind of just trying to make sure we capture the full bucket. But as we do that deep dive, we'll be able to more closely hone in on each individual aspect of the job. Okay.
Yeah, so it's a great example. Fort Walton, majority of that square footage is an administration facility, but they had 2 other fleet facilities specifically, and we put in a fuel island facility there, so that's cost includes a new fuel island facility. So again, every one of those is a little different, and so you have to take into consideration they're not a true apples to apples cost comparison, but we know that, and then we kind of adjust. Once we identify your program, then we'll adjust that economic model, then that'll be the yardstick that we measure everything against going forward.
Well, and I like that economic model approach. It seems kind of a little not familiar with that, but it looks like it's a way to do things. And also your timeline that you gave for us there, that was very nice too. So thank you very much for your presentation. And I guess just go out and wait outside, or.
Yeah, I think yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they can go home. Sorry.
Oh, they're just going home. We're not doing anything.
No,
right away to them.
because of timing, we'll have to discuss
Yeah,
it
that's what I was
probably after
thinking.
council.
That's what I was kind of getting at.
Will be during the council meeting?
After council?
After council?
After council, we'll probably reconvene.
Okay,
So they can
perfect.
discuss it.
All right, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Easy to walk away like a pin.
I gotcha.
Take it actually.
That's what I was kind of getting at, was what we're supposed to do. Okay, so that's all we have for this workshop, correct, Billy?
Right.
Okay, I'm going to adjourn the workshop, and then we'll convene back as close to 6 as we can. Meeting adjourned. What a food. Yep.